Hi, Sue Lundquist here, the Bridge Coach. Here we go again. We are jumping into the 11th template for transformation, the 11th session, 11th day, 11th hour, whatever it might be. I don't think it'd be 11 hours, but we are going into a very, very important topic. And somebody coming from a recovering people pleaser, this next tool is and still continues to be one of my greatest learning experiences, and it's boundaries. Let me read from you, or let me read to you from a good source. So if you guys want to go get her books, read more about boundaries. Harriet Lerner, Lerner, is an incredible resource for boundaries. So Harriet Lerner, this is just a definition of boundaries, and there's a reason why I'm telling you definition, because of awareness. The more you know. An intimate relationship is one in which neither party silences, sacrifices, or betrays the self, and each party expresses strength, vulnerability, weakness, competence, and all in a balanced way. Now I want you to look at that definition and where in your current life or relationships, all the above, that you don't feel that there is that balance of the intimate relationship. If this is not happening, then there needs to be a clarity conversation with yourself first to determine what it is that you need, because of the boundary, what it is that you need for yourself, but you have to get clear on what that is even prior to setting up a boundary. So I gave you take the word try out of your vocabulary. That is the precursor, or is part of setting up boundaries, because the moment that you take try out of your vocabulary, that forces you into yes and no answers. And that also forces you to get extremely clear on who you are, how you're showing up in the world, who you're choosing to spend your time with, and why, and set up boundaries. And if you're anything like me, that was one of mine, still is, a great chance to expand and learn, because I'm a natural nurturer. I love that about me. That won't ever change. But I'll tell you right now, I got boundaries. I got me some boundaries. And I have a tribe of people around me that I can trust, that will not take advantage of me. Now, when it starts to show up and I've got a lesson or a little like squeaky wheel of boundary, or somebody I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, that's me going, oh, when that comes up, wait a minute, where is it that I didn't put up my boundary? Where is it that I didn't show self-love for myself? That is all on me. So that's all on you too. So you guys will hear me talk about this, and you've heard people say it. You teach people how to treat you. So boundaries are fundamental in your inner work and inner world. And I want to ask you something, is if trust is really important to you. Think about this. If you really feel and value that people trust you, trust that what you say, trust that you're going to show up, all of that, show up physically, show up mentally, all of that. If you feel like I do that trust is important, then boundaries is going to be so big in your life, because people can't trust somebody that's running around pleasing everybody else and not loving on themselves, because they're saying yes to everybody else, feeling resentful, feeling a victimhood, all of that. And then you can't trust them. And at that point, you're like, oof. And if you are that person, then take a look. Have the CCs in life. Have compassionate curiosity, and start getting extremely clear on the types of people that you want to hang around and how you want to show up in the world. And then you can start putting up boundaries that feel good to you. And you can do that from a loving, respectful place. And it's not about you feeling guilty or shame. That's not what this is about. Boundaries are really, really important for your growth. You've heard me say that before, but it's so important. If you want people to trust you, you've got to put up boundaries. And you've also got to keep that frequency clear of love and trust. So there have been some conversation. I've talked to you about the victimhood and releasing those old emotions and replacing them with a new opportunity. No more victimhood. Boundaries, you've got to learn to stay in your own lane. So you see that line right there on this side, well, as you can see, the heart, that's me. Here's my boundary. I don't know what that is, but that doesn't matter. It's a coloring. And then this is the other person. So you yourself need to, and I'm looking at the shine, sorry guys. So you guys need to really, really focus on staying in your lane. And this is a really, really good image, practical image that you can see. Staying in your lane, staying in my lane. New situations, new circumstances, somebody's asking me to do something, new relationships, not being in codependency, not going into, I'm going to please everybody and forget about myself. Stay in your lane. So when I was talking to you guys a little bit earlier about victimhood and how that all can show up in your life, and it can with boundaries, because and I'm going to just read this. So while I was younger, I had no experience with personal boundaries. I simply thought everybody was giving and nurturing as me. No, wasn't the case. And for the record, that's okay too. What is not okay is for me or any of you giving up personal power to those who are takers. For myself, then I mix that in with low self-esteem, not having confidence, not knowing who I am, not standing in my purpose because I didn't even know what that was. All of that mixed in. Then you've got the characteristics of codependency. It's kind of a hot mess. I know I was a bit of a hot mess. And I say that with love because it's not so much anymore, because I've learned to put up boundaries. I was reading my notes here because I like the language that I was talking about here about I had no experiences of personal boundaries. So the experiences that I had and that was known to me were people taking advantage of me. So I didn't have a real good barometer or example for me. And then the people in my life, either they were takers or they were givers like me, and I didn't have the example, or nor was I taught how to stand up for myself with confidence, purpose, and love. You can do that and put up boundaries. Talk about that from a compassionate, vulnerable way, but also allowing yourself to be in a safe place and positioning yourself within a safe relationship. Now, if you're not feeling safe, then that's a whole nother conversation. You need to go talk to a professional. And we're talking boundaries. If you're having somebody and they're physically hurting you and completely crossing your boundary, go to the police, find somebody to talk to, and get some help. Today, we're talking about personal boundaries, languaging those boundaries, what to look out for, my experience with boundaries, and still it shows up in my life, and I know that I still need to learn more, which is fine. Solution. And what we have been speaking about before is one, having the awareness. So you have the awareness that, yeah, I'm not really standing in my power. Yeah, I'm kind of giving that up. I do feel resentful because I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. And that's on me. And you taking accountability for feeling that, and taking accountability and responsibility that you've allowed people to take advantage of you because you were unclear and you didn't have the tools, the language, or the confidence to be able to language how to be or have a respectful no. Maybe it was you didn't want to disappoint people. Boundaries can be very difficult for many, 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 many people. So I know there's people in my life, and this is a superpower tip or something that I'd like you to take a look at. If there's people that you truly want in your life that are nurturers and givers, I would invite you to say no for them. And I say that because I've got people in my life that aren't quite confident in setting boundaries. So I will say no for them if they just, and I can see the pattern that they just keep giving and giving, giving, or, always wanting to contribute and over giving. and from a place of love from what they want. And that's totally fine. However, I take it upon myself to say no to them, not because I'm being mean or I don't want it. It's just I'm protecting the relationship. So until they can get to a point where they feel confident in setting up boundaries. And when anybody in my life sets up those boundaries, I commend them for it. I commend myself now because I really want to set that example and show up in a different way. And if there are people in your life that really have a problem with boundaries, please just have some compassion. And if you're that person, have some compassion for yourself and take some time to get really clear on the types of people that you're hanging out with. Why are you hanging out with them? How are you behaving and reacting when you are around them or certain situations or environments? Really take a look at what that looks like. So some benefits of setting healthy boundaries, that you're trusted. We spoke to that. More compassion for yourself and the others. You feel confident and you feel that you're speaking of truth. Integrity for yourself, huge. You can trust yourself. You can trust yourself again. Less conflict in relationships. That's huge. And at work too. Less anxiety and stress. More energy to do what really matters to you. Inner peace. And less anger and resentment. And more, honestly, more energy to do what you really, really want to do. Because you're not expelling all that other energy on things that you didn't want to do and feeling resentful for things that you didn't want to do. And it's not the other person's fault. So we spoke to how important it is to feel trusted. That's a really, really, and was a huge eye-opener for me when I was learning about boundaries. And it's very important that people can trust me. And I stand in that purpose and confidence and integrity. There are, and this is kind of like a natural segue too, there will be some times where shame and guilt will start coming into play. And I want to talk about shame and guilt. And the person that I trust and get a lot of my resource and education from is Brene Brown. So if you want to go check her out, her name is BreneBrown.com. I've read all of her books multiple times. She is incredible. She's a shame researcher. If you haven't read them, read them. Go on YouTube, find some free YouTube information and see how it fits and feels for you. But her books, her language, her teaching was life-changing for me. So thank you, Brene Brown. So I'm going to speak a little bit about Brene. I'm not certified to teach her things. I just want to make you aware. And then you go get the education from her because this is her system. So from Brene Brown and what she teaches as the anatomy of trust. Please go see her books. I'm not certified in her teaching. I just want to make you aware and give you a really good trusted resource to go get the education. She's an author, speaker, shame researcher, all that. So she talks about the anatomy of trust, and I love this because she uses the analogies a lot like what I do and how I teach all of you with your PCC and creating your personal code of conduct. So she says braving and boundaries, you have them, stick to them, and respect mine. Braving to be you, braving and standing up in confidence and purposeful. So she used the word BRAVING, braving. Reliability. You do what you say you're going to do. That's trust, right? Both sides. Accountability. That's huge. I can only trust you when you make a mistake and own it, apologize, and make amends. So don't just apologize and no action. That's lip service. See where that's showing up in your life. Vault. What I share with you stays with you and vice versa. This is, again, Brene Brown and her research and what she's calling braving, the anatomy of trust. Braving. We went BRAVI, integrity. Do what you say. I'm going to do it as well. Choosing courage over comfort. Choosing what is right over fun. Fast or easy. And practicing your values, not just professing your values. N, non-judgment. We can each fall apart without being judged. In other words, losing my shit and having a vulnerable place to be able to lose my shit. Generosity. Our relationships are only trusted, and you only assume the most generous thing about my words, intentions, and behaviors. That is so powerful. Again, go and check out Brene Brown, Braving. That happens to be one of her acronyms for what she teaches. So I want to share something with you as well. And I want to share the difference between shame and guilt based on Brene's book. I thought it was just me, but it wasn't. She's an amazing storyteller and educator, but she's a shame expert. And I urge you to read all of her books with your help. So shame, defined in Brene's books, I am bad. That's about who you are. Guilt, I did something bad, is about your behavior. So really look at that. Are you finding yourself being triggered? That doesn't mean that you don't have to go into seclusion when you're transforming. So being triggered is a funny little booger, you guys. The other person that's triggering you has no idea that they're triggering you. It's something that is welled up inside of you. So you have to take responsibility and accountability solely for being triggered. It's not the other person's fault, nor is it the other person's responsibility. If you are being triggered, that's because it's your old program. It's an old inner habit. It's an old inner emotional program that is making you feel triggered, angry, resentful, fear, all of that. The other person you're speaking to doesn't know that. And it's not their memory. It is something that you are pulling up. So you have to take accountability and responsibility. All those triggers of you being angry, upset, scared, look at those, bring them up, address them and heal them. Bring them up for healing, release them, because they're old emotions and habits that truly do not serve you anymore. So really take a look at that. See where you're being triggered. Don't blame the other person. Be powerful and purposeful. Take accountability for your actions and behaviors, and really move forward with confidence. You can do that by setting up really good boundaries. That number one, taking try out of your vocabulary is really going to be an incredible tool for you moving forward with that. Languaging, different ways to language boundaries is also going to be a really important aspect of your inner world or your inner learning. And I tell you this because I know that I needed to take care of myself and put up those boundaries, but I also wanted the other person to know that they were loved on and taken care of as well. So finding ways to language it in respect is going to be super, super valuable and super important. And I teach that in the 16-Day Craziness to Clarity Challenge Facebook because it's more interactive. And I also do extensive work with that in my live programs and live interaction, because we can take the examples from the participants, language it in a respectful way, and it's way more powerful. I'm going to give you a couple examples really quick, but also remind you to stay in your lane. This is a really, really powerful tool. Stay in your lane when you start feeling that you're moving over. Just go, oh, nope, gonna stay in my lane. Nope, gonna stay in my lane. So say, for example, that there is somebody that you feel that I'm trying to think of an example here. So boundaries. You can language it in a manner, and I believe that I've got follow-up notes that are coming with this with a little bit of a script. And you can language boundaries in, thank you so much. I really, really love and support you. And this is you first. First, let me back up. You need to get really clear if this is someone you actually want to engage with and want to have this exchange with. Then this is how you would respond. So if they're asking you to do something, you say, you know what? I love what you're doing. I support what you're doing, but right now I just don't have the time and the bandwidth. Can we look at doing something together later on in the year or later on in the hour, whatever that looks like? So they then feel supported. They feel heard. You feel like you've set up your boundaries. And if they keep pushing at it, then at some point you've got to decide whether that person is being respectful to your boundaries. And if they're not, then that's a different conversation. You're going to have to get really clear on the type of relationship that you guys are dancing with, and if that's important to you, or if it's something that you can just send them on their way with blessings and love. So that's up to you. You've got to get very clear on what that looks like for you. But I can certainly help you. You can more than welcome to send me a little email or a messenger and say, hey, here's my example. Here's what I'm in, the situation I'm in. How would you language it? I'd be happy to see if I can't help you to do that. All right, we are going into forgiveness, I think. Ooh, juicy. All right, Sue Lundquist here. It's your template for transformation, craziness to clarity. We're getting there. I feel it. You're doing it. Keep doing the work, keep applying, and I'll see you guys in the next roll. See ya.